We like to think that the world is improving and our future generations are going to have a swell time. Turns out we are wrong, dead wrong, and here are the reasons why. Number 10, global warming. Alright, so for starters, don't believe the loons who say it's a myth. Where do you think all those exhaust fumes from all those cars and factories go? In the sky, and that's causing the Earth to warm up. Actually, we have reached the point that even if we stop all pollution, the Earth will keep on getting warmer for decades. Hope your grandson likes rising sea levels. Number 9, famine. We live in a world where the population is growing faster than our food production. Adding to that, many countries are against GM crops, which are the only salvation for mankind as they offer more for less. Not only that, but in many regions of the world, we have already peaked food production. With 40% of the world's agricultural land being termed seriously degraded, and the epidemic of stem rust, this is absolutely devastating for crops. Yes, by the looks of things, we are obviously headed in the wrong direction. Number 8, evolution of war. It is true that we are fighting less wars currently than we have ever before in the history of the human species, but war is changing. We are now moving towards unmanned warfare. We already had nukes which pretty much made standing armies obsolete, but now we have drones as well. With the abundance of military robots in the battlefield, soon all of war will be fought with machines. And you know what happens? Terminator happens. Number 7, running out of resources. If you follow the news, you probably know that silicon will soon be outdated as it can't keep up with Moore's law. That's a big deal. Every single electronic device you own has silicon components. The worst part is that we still haven't found a viable alternative for silicon. So basically we have no idea how future generations are going to send each other nude Snapchats and write trollish YouTube comments. But this is just the tip of the metaphorical iceberg. Uranium will run out by 2080 at our current production rates, oil and copper by 2050, and gold by 2030. Jeez. Either we will have to increase production on the tiny reserves left, or just find alternatives. Sadly, we haven't had much luck in the latter department. Number 6, politics. Money and politics go hand in hand, and currently in the US, most of the campaign donations, in the form of super PACs, come from large corporations supporting candidates which further their agenda. Each presidential campaign is spending more money than the last election. And when you see a trend where money has a higher value than individual voters, you're going on a slippery slope. But on the other side of the globe, two major economies are exploding, China and India, and higher economic growth means a surge in corruption. Future generations will have to deal with that. Number 5, fuel. Going back to the resources thing, as you already know, we are running out of fuel. How fast though? Well, in 10 years we will reach the peak for oil, meaning the demand for oil will exceed the production of oil. At that point, prices will skyrocket, and we don't have a proper alternate fuel source which is widely used. I can't even imagine how we will handle that in the coming decades. At least reducing oil usage will reduce pollution, but we will get back to that. Number 4, experimental technology accidents. This one is my favorite, and something we don't often hear about. In our sole determination for the pursuit of science, we often forget about how much thin ice we actually walk on. Just look at what our research in atoms leads to. One of the biggest threats to our planet is the Large Hadron Collider and the Relativistic Heavy Ion Collider, in which one failed experiment might lead to a global disaster involving black holes. And then, our experimental research in biotechnology could lead to the accidental release of a virus which could turn into a global pandemic. But the scariest one is nanotechnology. We could unintentionally create out-of-control self-replicating robots which could consume all of living matter on Earth. That means humans as well. This is what we call gray goo. Number 3, population. Since the end of the Great Famine, we have experienced constant population growth, and that isn't a good thing. I already told you how rising oil demands and how our high use of natural resources ain't gonna end well. Now this is the cherry on top. More population means less food, again something I mentioned before, and it means more crime, more overcrowding, and an adverse impact on our environment. New mouths to feed also leads to poverty as most of the population growth happens in poor countries with lack of access to education. But worst of all, it leads to war. In our history, whenever the population reaches a certain level and whenever access to more resources becomes paramount, war follows. Just look at the Han and Tang period of China. Number 2, disease. After SARS, we are long overdue for a major pandemic. Ebola seems like the likely candidate, but it's only transferable by bodily liquids, so it's not super efficient in spreading itself. At our level of population density, once a virus takes hold, it will take decades to contain it. Even with our high level of medical expertise, vaccines and cures don't happen overnight. And then they have a long testing period before they are allowed to be administered to the general public. We also have started massive amounts of air travel, so any airborne virus will probably spread all over the globe once it even touches a major airport. Hopefully this won't happen in our lifetimes. Number 1. Natural disasters. This is the big one. There is a supervolcano at Yellowstone which could threaten our civilization when it would erupt. And with the collapse of the West Antarctic ice sheet, you have global warming to thank for that. We are at risk of a mega tsunami, and our magnetic poles can also reverse, which could disrupt all of our electronic technologies. So basically, all of our technologies. And I will leave it at that. Don't get so down though, we don't have to worry about this in our lifetimes. Don't forget to subscribe for more top 10s and be sure to follow us at listogre.com, the place to get your daily dosage of interesting lists.